So today we're going to be talking about where do fractions and decimals fall on a number line. Here we have a regular number line counting from 0 to 5, and if we count starting here up to 5, we notice that it's a predictable pattern. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We just add 1 to the last number. But notice we have a gap in between each number. This gap is where our fractions and decimals live. So right here in between the numbers 2 and 3 is the decimal 2.5. We can also express it as a fraction 2.5. The decimal 0.5 and the fraction 1/2 are the same thing. There are some common fractions and decimals that we'll see a lot in our everyday life. We already talked about one of them. 0.5 and 1/2 are two common decimal and fractions that we'll see a lot. Now because this is in between 7 and 8, we have to add a 7 to both of these numbers. So we're saying that halfway, this mark right here, halfway between 7 and 8 is 7.5, or we can also say 7.5. This mark right here represents 1/4 of the way to 8. So if we start at 7 and we count 1, 2, 3, 4, we have broken it into 4 sections, and this is 1/4 of them. So we can write that as the fraction 7 1/4, or its equivalent decimal 7.25. 0.25 and 1/4 are the same thing. Right here, we're at 3/4, 1, 2, 3 out of the 4 sections. So we can write this as 7 3/4, or we can write it in 3/4 equivalent decimal, which is 7.75. These are common fractions and decimals. There are some more common fractions and decimals that we'll see on a daily basis as well. Here we have the same numbers, 7 to 8, and we've broken it up into 3 sections now, or what we call thirds. So this one out of these 3 is 1/3 of the way there. And we can represent it as 7 1/3. Now the decimal equivalent of 1/3 is 0.3 repeating, or 0.33 repeating. When we get here, we're 2/3 of the way there, and we can write that as 7 2/3. The equivalent decimal for 2/3 is 0.66 repeating. This line represents that this number will just repeat itself forever. So these 3's go on forever, these 6's go on forever, but we write the line so that we don't have to write it forever, because
ain't nobody got time for that.
So looking at these common fractions and decimals again, we can see 1/2 and 0.5 are the same thing, or 0.5. 2/3 and 0.6 repeating are the same thing. 3/4 and 0.75 are the same thing. When we count using fractions and decimals, we count a little bit differently than if we're counting by whole numbers like 0, 1, 2. Remember, in that case, we just add 1 to the last number. It's not quite the same when we're counting by common decimals. Here, I start at 0.25, then go to 0.50, then 0.75. I'm adding 0.25 each time. The fractions go even more crazy because they start at 1/4 and then go to 1/2 and then to 3/4. To help make sense of this though, I'm going to mention that 1/2 is the same thing as 2/4.